Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Amazon, proud sponsor of WPLN's daily show, This Is Nashville, engaging our differences so we can discover our unity. More on Amazon's community work at aboutamazon.com.
I'm Khalil Colonna, and this is Nashville. It is that time of the month, Nashville, time for our mayor, Freddie O'Connell, to come into the studio and to take your calls. How is the transit referendum coming? What's up with the development of the East Bank project? How is the city preparing for the future? You can talk to Mayor O'Connell directly by calling 615-760-2000. Again, that's 615-760-2000. And as always, remember that Mayor O'Connell and his staff are human beings doing absolutely the best they can for all of us. So respect is a must. With that, allow me to welcome Mayor Freddie O'Connell back to This Is Nashville. How's it going?
Khalil, good to be with you.
Always
glad
good
to
have you. Glad to have you. Okay, I want to start with this recent public safety legislative package.
Yeah.
You were here last month, and we were preparing to do we were asking you what you were preparing to do to counter the presence of Nazis demonstrating in Nashville and downtown, and to protect everyone who calls this city home. Recently, you introduced what you're calling a public safety legislative package.
Yeah.
Is this specifically to address the Nazi situation?
This is more than anything, it's a response to some serious public feedback we got, some concerns, honestly, that were raised by a lot of Metro employees about, and you know, you might remember during some of that episode, it's really more about the safety of the people involved in this. Metro council members, Metro department employees who frequently come to council meetings, members of the Nashville resident public who come to public hearing, and kind of things that they were sharing with us as concerns. We've had a sort of a security working group looking at multiple Metro facilities. There was a little bit of a disturbance at City Hall during some of this recent activity. And then we also had a lot of people say, just during a variety of, these moments where we've had some troubling, what I would say troubling episodes of people taking maybe the boundaries of free speech to beyond what I think a lot of us would consider their reasonable limits, and still focus on safety. We got a lot of questions about, well, why couldn't you do anything in this scenario? And the reality was, between First Amendment and right of access to public space, there were very significant constraints in what we could do. And so we, the Metro Department of Law, actually worked with a First Amendment specialist, and we did do this survey of public facilities and take in a lot of the feedback, working with council members, with the Metro Council Office, with the Vice Mayor, working with multiple Metro departments that are housed in buildings where public hearings also occur. The Howard office building on the Fulton complex of Metro frequently has Metro planning, Metro historic zoning, and other public meetings and public hearings there. And we heard from other departments in those buildings. The Metro clerk's office is right there, and just making sure that we kind of did. And there's a little bit of safety audit still ongoing. The Davidson County Sheriff's Office is involved in some of the safety of the buildings. Sometimes it's Metro Nashville Police Department. But just taking a comprehensive look at the many things we learned, the number of points of feedback we got from both the general public and public employees, and people who observed this and said, what can we do to limit the likelihood of threats to public safety going forward?
What's in the package?
So ultimately, it looks at access to buildings. It looks at safety on the roadway. It looks at, kind of post-pandemic face covering situations. And it looks at distribution of materials kind of, again, in this, one of the things that I think as we looked at what was possible to kind of say where are the boundaries, we looked at vandalism and littering and those kinds of things. So it's really just a couple of basic items where we may be able to say, hey, this is, absolutely you have the right to have freedom of expression and assembly, but ultimately there are going to be some boundaries that we think are reasonable that we're going to ask people to stay within.
And in a statement, you said that the measures will, quote, discourage behavior that can spark violence, end quote. So
that's the fundamental goal, because I will tell you, if you are part of a worship community, a synagogue, and a bunch of people show up outside on the sidewalk with swastikas and worse paraphernalia that they are distributing, I mean, it does contribute to a sensation that this could become violent if there's a confrontation, and we want to limit the possibility of violence as people still enjoy the access to free speech.
What are the penalties for violation of one of the measures?
They're fairly minor. Anytime you make adjustments to the Metro Code of Laws, these tend to be citations. This is not something that you're going to get you can't create a felony through the Metro Council process. So this is really looking at, you may be able to be cited, you may be able to be briefly detained, or at least you may be able to have a law enforcement interaction, but it's very unlikely that any of these things would wind up with somebody being fully booked and even a misdemeanor. I think a lot of these, and we'll see. I'm interested to see what the Metro Council response is to them, but ultimately these are not intended to be harsh penalties. It's more, this is intended to give us an opportunity to prevent violence before it occurs.
Again, this is Ask the Mayor with Mayor Freddie O'Connell. You can call to talk to him. Call him at 615-760-2000, 615-760-2000. Okay, so Saturday is International Overdose Awareness Day.
Right.
In 2017, the federal government declared that the opioid crisis constitutes a national public health emergency. That declaration has been renewed 27 times since. And the Nashville Banner recently crunched the numbers and wrote that, quote, drug overdoses are still killing more Nashvillians than shootings and car crashes, end quote. What is the city doing to address this problem?
Yeah, we have a lot of things that are underway. We did get, because of that emergency status, alongside a group of American citizens that took this into their own hands from a legal standpoint. There's a significant settlement with some of the companies that produce these opioids that has resulted in money going into a lot of jurisdictions, including Nashville. So recently, we just reconstituted our Behavioral Health and Wellness Advisory Committee. I think you all are having Sergeant Hotz on later as well. Mm-hmm. So we've had a significant law enforcement response. We've had a public health response. We're looking at there's an RFP out right now to do some of the work with that settlement money to make sure that we're effectively combating the opioid epidemic right now. Metro Public Health Department just over the past year has added their first really clinical capacity in the domain of public health. So it's not just kind of vaccines and new moms. We now do have a behavioral health component to it. Our Office of Nightlife, led by Benton McDonough, has been very active in working on Narcan distribution among entertainment district sites. They have really had some good success with raising awareness among some of the downtown entertainment district establishments. So the Office of Nightlife is very engaged. Similarly, we've had Office of Homeless Services working on this. So some of this is availability of the supplies like Narcan and making sure those are out there. Some of this is having law enforcement engaged in this, both on the prevention but on the response side as well. Some of it is the public health response through that, and we do. I'm very interested in seeing what the final submitters to the RFP for that settlement process come up with, because we know we need sort of an all-hands approach. And then we have really powerful advocates out there in the community, people like Jelly Roll, who has really leaned into this as a crisis, something that's been very personal to him. Mayor Megan Barry has been very vocal on this. And so it's actually been great to have some of those public champions and advocates out there, not just raising awareness, but often also raising money for some of the important nonprofit providers that are active on this as well. So encouraging news is that we have started to see a downturn in that impact, but you've raised the point well. I mean, this is still a very serious issue here in Nashville.
You mentioned Sergeant Michael Hotz, who is with the Overdose Unit for Metro Police. We're going to have him on later on in the show. He may be able to answer this in more detail, but I have to ask you, what are the on-the-ground programs run by the city that are meeting the needs of people where they are?
I think Sergeant Hotz is probably closest to that from that response unit. But again, I think the Office of Nightlife has been making sure that we can respond effectively to overdoses within that footprint. If Sergeant Hotz and his team aren't directly embedded in the entertainment district unit full time, we know that they've got to have citywide coverage. That is a law enforcement response. But I will say, Metro Public Health Department, we're in a moment of leadership transition there, but a lot of the people that have been following this closely, I think there's engagement both on the MPHD side and the MNPD side to make sure that people know that they can come to a Metro Public Health Department site and get resources, materials, try to, they're as engaged in the advocacy and awareness piece of this, because I think some of this winds up being, you may think you're not really putting yourself at risk. You may not be aware, for instance, that if you are a casual, occasional recreational drug user, that's something that is coming off the street may be laced with fentanyl. There may just not be enough of that social awareness. And so there's also that need to raise awareness. There's that need to be able to respond quickly if you do discover somebody who is in an overdose condition. So it's a pretty important network of systems that come together to do this on the ground.
Education is really important in preventing overdoses. Has Metro Schools been a part of this as far as educating the youth and the students about the detriments of drug use? There's still a lot of
I'd say that the importance of education is for real, but I also feel like what I've learned, I don't know if you've seen this, but there was, when I was a kid, right, we had DARE as a significant program. And there was some research that came out years later after DARE that kind of looked at, was this effective? And the results are mixed. How you get this education piece right for younger audiences in particular, and how they'll grow up and kind of start to react to it as adults is still a real challenge. So making sure that you get not only who you're talking to, but what you're talking to them about right. I think it's really important to be not just well-intentioned on that front, but also evidence-based and look at what is working in terms of communicating risk, particularly to younger audiences. I think then there's this separate set of audiences of post-secondary, are engaged around college campuses and those kinds of things. But that's where I also think getting some of the establishment responsibilities, some of the bars and clubs that have people who may be, getting ready to consume things other than alcohol as they're coming to participate there, having awareness there for their employee base that they may need to be also aware of what the signs of an overdose look like. Having again, college campuses, maybe even sometimes, to your point, high school campuses be aware of, hey, here are the signs of overdose activity is really important. But I know you're going to get a lot more detailed and kind of frontline reflections from Sergeant Hotz when he's on.
All right, we got our first call from Jay in North Nashville. Jay, thank you for calling. What is your question or comment?
Hey, Khalil. Hey, love the show. Props to you. Appreciate what you're doing here in Nashville. Wanted to give one comment to the mayor. Wanted to thank the mayor for all the wonderful work that he's doing. I know you stepped into quite a big job as a mayor in general, and there's a lot of things going on here in Nashville, so I just want to say thank you for your efforts. Got one quick question. With everything that's going on, there's a myriad set of things I'm sure you know that you face every day. What is one area or one topic, one focus that you believe, we're kind of seeing the light, the tunnel? I can call this an accomplishment, before your first term is done. What do you see as that?
Yeah, we're not all the way to it yet, but I think there are a couple things. To me, right now, the conversation that plays out between here and November will have a lot to do with that. It's really this, can we recover a generation of lost ground on transportation and infrastructure, and having that the transit referendum play out successfully as we all make this decision together as a city. I think that's one of the biggest things we're working on. A lot of the things, though, that are in play that we are doing to try to make it easier for everybody to live in the city and have an opportunity to thrive here, they're going to take the daily chipping away at them effort for the entire time that I'm in office, that our Metro workforce is working on this, creative thinking, funding opportunities, all those things. And an example of that is affordable housing, right? So this summer, we launched a new affordable housing tool called the Catalyst Fund that's really intended to let mission-driven developers jump in when it seems like some existing multifamily, let's say you had an apartment building that was about to hit the market and you've got a lot of long-term residents already in it that have had reasonably low rent. And this fund is set up to let somebody come in and acquire that and keep those rents low, sometimes below market, sometimes well below market. And so that's one new tool, but it doesn't immediately cause the creation of tens of thousands of affordable homes that we know are still necessary. So some of these things, we're going to throw a lot of effort at it. We're going to throw a lot of energy, funding, resources, people, talent, public-private opportunities, and they're still going to feel like 3 years later we made some progress, but we didn't get it done. And I think that's one lesson I learned a long time ago that really helps me make sure that I'm mindful of the progress we make on a lot of these fronts every day. Is most of these problems don't get solved. You move in the direction of where life gets better as you make progress on this for as many people as possible. And that's really what we're aiming to do. I think in some cases, though, there are really important things happening along the way. I think one of our big objectives is to try to, again, in that vein of trying to help people thrive, reduce as many adverse childhood experiences as we can for as many of Nashville's young people as we can. And we just got a really great grant that lets us move the Nashville Strong Babies program that has supported mothers from prenatal through the first year of life of their children from a handful of zip codes to citywide, countywide. And being able to do that means that in this 5-year pilot period, in just a few zip codes, we have actually had a 100% survival rate for participating mothers. And so this is helping moms, this is helping babies, and it's a great example of something where if we can lower infant mortality rates, if we can reduce maternal mortality rates in communities of color, we've had a transformative impact for a whole new generation of Nashvillians. So we're trying to do that work as well.
All right. Thank you so much for giving us a call, Jay. And if you're listening, you can be like Jay and call us to talk to Mayor Freddie O'Connell. You can just call 615-760-2000. Again, that's 615-760-2000. Now, Mayor O'Connell, you mentioned something about improving the quality of life and the safety opportunities for the youth. Earlier during the budget session, varsity spending plan was passed, which created the new Office of Youth Safety. And I know it's only barely getting started. What are your hopes for this office as it continues to grow?
Well, so as we got through that, not only our interns and in partnership with our Mayor's Youth Council, with the Power Youth Initiative, we were kind of having a nearby youth-led, youth-driven, it was basically a Voices Against Violence summit to get ideas. And this is kind of an extension of work that now Juvenile Clerk Matthews did when he was working in Mayor Berry's administration, and making sure that you're never too far away from the experiences of young people and what they are telling us as grownups that they need to see in their lives to be both safe and successful. And so that was really good. Hearing the varsity spending plan, we've already had the leadership team of that, the advocacy around that plan come into the mayor's office. We know that one of the specific elements of that plan would create staff and some supporting programming at the Napier Community Center, and one of the more challenging parts of the city that I have a lot of historical connection to through representing that area while on the Metro Council. And so that's one specific element. And then it's really, what does this office look like? And we do have some very strong leaders on the Metro Council. Councilmember Delicia Porterfield, who was chair of the Budget and Finance Committee that responded to that advocacy in the public hearing process after our budget had already been recommended, enabled that funding. She's been very involved in that. Meanwhile, Councilmember Tom Druffel had been working on a lot of youth opportunity issues for a couple of years, in fact, and had kind of a steering committee. And so we're making sure as best we can that these ideas of youth opportunity and youth safety don't drift too far away from one another. Mm-hmm. We've also been we announced earlier this summer that we were going to be the local government sponsor for My Brother's Keeper as we've become a certified community and strengthening that connection to the Obama Foundation that supports it. They just had a big summit this weekend over at MLK Magnet School, and you had 250 young people registered from grades 4 through 12, and then a surprising number of parents came out to join. I think we had more than 75 parents out there for a variety of programs, a parent town hall, and we want all these things to stack up so that ultimately young people are less likely to get involved in causing violence, that they are ultimately less likely to be victims of violence, whether in school or at home or in the community, and also that through initiatives like Power Youth, through the literacy building process that MBK is offering, and some of the creative programs out there like getting Music City construction careers stood up at Maplewood, supporting the academies process, that whether you're in metro schools or not, as you are becoming a young adult and eventually a full adult, that you have lifelong opportunity. And so safety and opportunity to me really sit closely together. But we're continue to be engaged with the Varsity Spending Plan leadership community.
All right, let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll keep taking your calls so you can talk with Mayor Freddie O'Connell. Call us up, 615-760-2000. We'll be right back.
Freddie is a man of class. We want Freddie for a leader. All the state to raise your champagne glass. We want Freddie for a leader. Freddie is a man of class.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Khalil Ekolona, and this is Nashville. We are taking your calls and talking with Mayor Freddie O'Connell. Yes, Ask the Mayor is your opportunity to talk with Mayor O'Connell and ask him the pressing questions that are on your mind. To do that, call us at 615-760-2000. It's as simple as that. Again, thank you, Mayor O'Connell, for being here.
Glad to be here.
All right, we got a call from Andrew in Madison. Andrew, thanks for calling. What is your question or comment?
Yeah, thanks for your time here today. Mayor, I really enjoy what you're doing here. Keep up the good work. I think we just saw that Memphis just tried to pass some non-binding gun control resolutions, and I see where they dropped that because the state wanted to remove the sales tax incentives that they were going to receive if they did pass that non-binding resolution. I'm wondering, as a Democratic city in a red state, are you in contact with the mayor of Memphis and the lawmakers there and see if we can do any kind of unified front of requesting or demanding sensible gun control from the Republican-led state legislation?
Yeah, I am, and I'm also, Nashville, like many of the cities across Tennessee, are part of the Tennessee Municipal League. I think we've tried to figure out across cities and also the county level how we can most successfully interact with state legislators about this. Tennessee's 4 big cities, Memphis, Nashville, Chattanooga, Knoxville. We have the 4 mayors of those cities have generally had a pretty good working relationship, as Mayor Young in Memphis and I have joined Mayor Kelly and Mayor Kincannon out of Chattanooga and Knoxville, respectively. There have been a lot of issues on the plate. I was pretty personally involved with and connected to the Covenant School mass shooting here in Nashville last year, and had spent a lot of time both at Legislative Plaza and in the Capitol and chambers trying to participate in this advocacy personally. I think what you saw in Memphis, and I haven't looked at exactly what the council did or what they put on the ballot, is simply that even with the governor expressing enough support, I think, again, with a personal connection to some of the tragic events that have unfolded here, even with some expression of support for something like a extreme risk protection order program, it is, and having a special called session of the General Assembly, I think what we're seeing is that the focus there is not ultimately going to return to an era of common sense gun safety anytime soon. There may be an opportunity for collaboration on a mental health basis, but it also is, it's why I think at the local level, we're always looking at ways we can reduce gun violence. And so we've started to increase availability of programs like gun safes and gun locks for vehicles, because we know that theft of weapons from vehicles where they're not secured properly has actually been one of the bigger epidemics contributing further to the use of guns illegally, including in violent situations in Nashville. We are looking at dispossession scenarios for people who already should not legally have access to a firearm and strengthening those kinds of situations. And then again, I think to the topic that Khalil and I were just discussing with youth safety initiatives, we're trying to make sure that access to guns for young people, that we're doing everything we can there, both lawfully and culturally, to make sure that we're keeping young people safe. And then, meanwhile, we're taking steps on the school safety front. Dr. Battle in Metro Schools, as well as Chief Drake and the Metro Nashville Police Department, have had a really productive dialogue over the past year over some initiatives that they think will improve safety in our school system. So we're taking every step we can legally at the local level, and we do continue to coordinate, not just with those 4 big city mayors, but with cities across Tennessee through the Tennessee Municipal League to see how we can all keep one another safe together.
All right. Thank you so much for that call, Andrew. Really appreciate it. We're going to go to Jennifer in College Grove. Jennifer, thank you for calling. What's your question for Mayor O'Connell?
Yes. Hi, Mayor. I had a quick question. Has there been discussion about a possible bus service ride share into the B&A airport? I don't know if you've heard about what they do in Boston, but it's called the Logan Express. And about a half an hour outside the city, there's a perimeter of different bus stations. And for $9, you can park at that parking lot and be bused into the airport.
Huh. So I'll tell you a couple things. So on this front, I do know that as the airport has completed sort of their B&A vision, multi-year expansion that got to where things are now with a new international arrivals terminal that just opened and a few other pretty significant enhancements, and they start on this new horizon expansion, they're thinking a lot about how people get to and from the airport. I know they've changed up some of their express parking scenarios. I don't think it's exactly like what Logan Express is doing. I will tell you that the airport team we stay pretty close in touch with, and we're looking at costs this year of how we could actually also create some express transit service to the airport. There is a route right now that serves it and another one that gets pretty close. And we think we can serve both a workforce and a passenger scenario more effectively. But it's one of the things we're also incredibly excited about with the transportation referendum that's coming up. I don't know how Boston got there with those perimeter park and ride facilities. We've mostly so far as a city considered park and ride not on an airport specific basis, but if we had land available for park and ride, we've got so many regional commuters that I think we're focused on making sure that they can get into and around the city from the region, as well as Nashvillians who may be in outerlying areas like Old Hickory, Jolton, Cane Ridge, Bellevue, making sure that they've got access and could take advantage of express transit service. But we're in constant contact with the airport, and as they grow, they know that, and we know that getting people to and from the airport efficiently and safely is a top priority. And I'm happy to go explore the Logan Express model and see how they accomplished it.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Jennifer. I'll say this, Mr. Mayor, if I can get to the airport for $9, sign me up.
So I will tell you, if we're successful in the initiative we're looking at with a community transit center site at Global Mall, and we have already some initiatives underway to improve the Murfreesboro Pike corridor, it's very conceivable that you could have a full bus rapid transit implementation that would get you there quickly for far cheaper than $9. So
hey,
that's what we're working on.
Sign me up. Sign me up. Okay, real quick. I know you have to leave very shortly, but I just want to ask you this. Last week you were in Chicago for the DNC. Mm-hmm. A lot of leaders from across the country get together. While you were there, did you meet other city leaders and talk about any particular issues that you're trying to address here in Nashville?
Yeah, really. Incredibly, U.S. Conference of Mayors was there, and they were actually at the Republican National Convention as well, and they had a mayors-focused event. Then over the course of the week, Democratic Mayors Association was very active. I'm very fortunate to have a bipartisan group of mayors, that some of whom reached out to me, some of whom have been in more formal programs with me, some of whom participate in organizations like DMA. And so we got to visit quite a bit over the course of the week, and there was frankly a whole network of activities specifically focused on mayors, where we got to lean into discussions around affordable housing, and had a couple of mayors talk about what they were doing, but also had key partners like Amazon there who were speaking to the 3,000 homes they've actually helped create here in Nashville. We're one of their top 3 cities where they've been deeply invested in helping us resolve some of the pressures of affordable housing in Nashville. There was a session focused on infrastructure, one on workforce, one on technology, and I got to participate in almost all of those, and actually came back with quite a few things for our team in the mayor's office to review, to just see if we can improve our performance in all of these areas.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for being here, Mayor Freddie O'Connell. Again, thanks for taking phone calls from the people. I know everyone in the city really appreciates it.
Well, great to be with you. Thanks for the opportunity to have the conversation today.
Yes, sir. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk with 2 Nashvillians who are working to prevent and limit drug overdoses in our city. This is Nashville. We'll be right back. I'm Khalil Ekolona, and this is Nashville. In 2017, the federal government declared the opioid crisis a national public health emergency, and that declaration has been renewed 27 times since. Now, as we mentioned in the previous segment, the Nashville Banner reported that even though there's been a decrease so far this year, quote, drug overdoses are still killing more Nashvillians than shootings and car crashes, end quote. This Saturday is International Overdose Awareness Day, which is the world's largest annual campaign to end overdose. Remember, without stigma, those who have died, and acknowledge the grief of family and friends left behind. Now, joining us to discuss this important topic is Regional Overdose Prevention Specialist and with STARS Nashville is Charles Chapped Cuthbert, and he is here with Sergeant Michael Hotz of Metro Nashville Police Department's Overdose Unit. Gentlemen, thank you both for being here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Khalil.
We are still taking your calls. If you want to talk about this important topic, you can call us up at 615-760-2000 if you have questions. These are 2 of the people in the city who are in the know the most. All right, so we know it's possible to have overdoses of all different types of drugs, methamphetamines, alcohol, prescription medication, opioids, and overdoses in every case can look really, really different. But, are there any common signs or symptoms that we can look for to identify an overdose?
Yeah, one of the main things when somebody's taking an opioid or something for pain, generally, as they lead to the overdose stage, they slow down. So versus a stimulant would kind of pick somebody up. And generally, people will nod off. Their breathing will start to become real shallow to the point where eventually that breathing will stop. Also, one of the things you can look at is somebody's pupils. Their pupils will be almost like pinpoints. So it's the combination of kind of nodding off, and eventually an opioid overdose basically stops the breathing. So that would be an overdose.
Sergeant Hotz, walk us through what to do step by step if we see someone in our vicinity who is experiencing an overdose.
Well, firstly, I'd like to encourage everyone to have naloxone or Narcan on hand and available to you. Nowadays, it's very important to have it with you. If you identify somebody who does appear to be going through an overdose, the fingernails will be blue, the lips will be blue, the skin will be pale and clammy. If you see that, I would suggest administering a dose of Narcan first. Most available one is the intranasal Narcan. And then as soon as you give that first dose, call 911, get an ambulance rolling to you immediately. And then you closely watch that individual for 2 to 3 minutes. Hopefully they either start breathing or regain consciousness. And if they don't, you can administer the second dose of Narcan that comes in the overdose kit in the other nostril. And hopefully by then, emergency medical services will be on scene.
But it's more, from what I understand, it's more than just adding Narcan and everything's okay, right?
That's correct. Narcan is saving lives every day. I can't underestimate its importance, but it's not going to bring us to the other end of this overdose tunnel and the overdose death cycle. But it is saving lives every day. I like to use the analogy of, if somebody is drowning in a lake and somebody saves them and pulls them to shore, if you don't teach them how to swim and they go in the lake again the next day, we really need to increase the availability of treatment resources and destigmatizing addiction and just helping people get into recovery.
Okay, you recommended that people carry naloxone or Narcan with them. Say someone doesn't use drugs. Is it easy to get a hold of?
Yes. My partner Chap here, he has access to it. And we also, the Metro Nashville Police Department has a program in place, a leave behind program, where the ropes provided to the police department, and then the police department, we can provide it to individuals who are at risk.
Chap, can I just walk into a Walgreens and get it?
Yeah, you can. So Narcan now is over the counter, so anybody can get it over the counter. But we also are a source for Narcan. We can give it to folks that don't have insurance or don't have the money to do it. So we can provide that to folks that are at high risk, friends and families of those folks.
How aware are you, both of you, of situations like we have? It's Labor Day weekend coming up, a 3-day weekend. A lot of people are going to be out. A lot of people are going to be imbibing and taking substances. Is this normally a time where you see higher traffic?
Yes, there could potentially be an increase over different holidays, especially we also see increases in the summertime as well. I'd encourage people to increase their awareness of it. A lot of people in the general public don't understand. There was a recent study by the Tennessean done of major metropolitan areas in the United States. A lot of people don't know that Nashville has the second highest rate of overdose death in the entire country.
Wow.
And that's not a distinction, that we're proud of, but it's a distinction that motivates us every day to do more work within the community and to help people get into treatment.
Is there an age requirement to acquire naloxone?
No. Since it's over the counter, anybody can buy it. And I'll notice too, or remind folks that Narcan can be administered at any age. So it's safe to use, and even in kids.
Okay, we have a call from Joyce in Nashville. Joyce, thank you for calling. What would you like to share with us?
Okay. I know some of the folks on your panel, and I know there's not a lot of time, but I've been doing work with HIV and the opiate crisis. I'm going to say I'm 82 years old and I'm still working just about, so my contract is just about over, and I've been working with Nashville, Davidson County. So my question is, with all that, I know there's no magic bullet. I know Narcan is major, but it's not a magic bullet because now there are other substances in the drugs that don't test positive. I don't think the state, and maybe I'm incorrect, does not test for things like Trank, which is the street name for another drug that is a very, very high drug. Folks on the panel will know that. And the other piece of that is, in other states, Narcan is free. I went into the drugstore over the year and a half. You have to buy the Narcan over the counter. And most people do not have the $49 or $50, or maybe the price went down in the last couple of months, to buy it. So my real question is, where are the vending machines? And I know there is some in the sheriff's department, which is really good. I'm not knocking it, but it's not enough. I mean, like, what person is going to go into a sheriff's department that are using drugs to get Narcan and the testing strips? So I know there's a lot of money that just came in the state in the last couple of months, and I'm hoping that there's going to be a more proactive piece. I can go on with a couple of more questions, but I'll leave it as that.
Joyce, you bring up some really good points, and thank you for calling, and thank you for the work that you've been doing all of these years. Okay, Chap, what's up with the price of it?
Yeah, so $45 I think is the over-the-counter price. It's expensive, but there are also ways that folks who cannot afford it can get it. So if you're at risk, or if a family member or somebody who knows somebody that's at risk, we can provide that Narcan. You can go to starsnashville.org, get linked with us. In Davidson County, we can provide Narcan after some training in order, for those folks to have it. But there's other places too. Some of our syringe service programs like StreetWorks, Nashville Cares, and Meharry offer places where folks can go and get access to these harm reduction agents.
Okay, so I want to ask you about that. You work as a regional overdose prevention specialist, and part of your work is what's called harm reduction. Explain. Many listeners of our show may have heard us use that term before, but for anyone who is unaware, explain what that is.
Yeah, so harm reduction in a general sense, if you look at it, it's always been around. Seatbelts would be an example of it. So it's providing something that's scientifically proven, to a disease. And in terms of people who use drugs, harm reduction is a way to promote health. We're meeting people where we're at. So we're not judgmental on telling them exactly where they should be, but we give them scientifically, proved methods like Narcan, like fentanyl test strips, xylazine test strips that Joyce referred to in Trank. We do have some of those test strips that will test positive for that. Those are agents that promote health and mitigate risk, because today with fentanyl, it's killing way too many of our brothers and sisters statewide and citywide. So harm reduction tools is vital.
Now, Sergeant Hotz, you mentioned that that study, I believe it was the Tennessean, saying that Nashville had the second highest rate of overdose deaths in the country, which is very, very shocking and highly upsetting. I'm thinking of moments and events like Bonnaroo. A lot of people are going down there. There's festivals. A lot of people are planning to take different substances. Someone who may want to think ahead and have naloxone with them in case someone overdoses may be wary because they don't know if it's against the law or not for them to administer naloxone. Is that the case? Is it legal for someone to administer naloxone to someone who's in need?
Absolutely. And they're even one step further. They're protected by Tennessee state law, the Good Samaritan Act. If you render aid to somebody in good faith, you cannot be held liable. It is 100% within your legal right to administer Narcan to someone. The beautiful thing about Narcan and all the associated products is that it's the closest thing to a magical drug that I've ever seen. The only thing it does is reverse opioid overdose deaths, and it has no negative side effects. It doesn't get you high. You can't get addicted to it. And let's say, for example, if somebody had a stroke and somebody misidentifies that as an overdose and administers Narcan anyway, no harm, no foul. It will not hurt the people. We have, in 2022, there were 754 people in our city that died from drug overdoses, and 746 in 2023. We need to get the number down, and we need to save lives.
What about calling for help for a friend if you've also been using, or if there are drugs or paraphernalia nearby? People may be hesitant then because, they're afraid of punishment under the law. What's the circumstance there?
I think one of the unique things about Metro Nashville Police Department's approach to this overdose crisis, was a move away from small misdemeanor drug arrests to, instead of if we encounter somebody with a small amount of paraphernalia or a small amount of an illicit substance, we would much rather help that individual get into a treatment facility and help that person get a hold of harm reduction tools such as Narcan and our Leave Behind program. Very much rather see that. And I also like to provide people with phone numbers and make them plug it into their phone, so if they are ready to receive treatment one day down the road, that they have that resource in their hand ready to call.
If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville, and I'm your host, Khalil Ekolona. We're talking this hour about the upcoming International Overdose Awareness Day that falls on this Saturday. My guests are Regional Overdose Prevention Specialist with STARS Nashville, Charles Chap Cuthbert, and Sergeant Michael Hotz, of the Metro Nashville Police Department's Overdose Unit. Call with questions. I know you've got them. 615-760-2000. Now, Chap, what is STARS doing to break the stigma around substance use disorder? A lot of people have a stigma about it, and personally, I think that's something that prevents folks from getting involved and actually helping people. How is STARS eradicating that stigma?
Well, STARS, by having the ropes, like Regional Overdose Prevention Specialists, when we go out and do our trainings, all of 4 of us that are concentrated here in Davidson County are people in recovery. So we have lived experience. So that is one important thing when you can see somebody that's actually recovered, walk through the same path that the folks that we reach out to. But it goes beyond that. The general public can do things like using people first language, where a person who's suffering from substance use disorder is still a person first. And, so they deserve all of the recognition. Yes, they are suffering from a disease that can be treated, but also, just making sure that hope is out there. So STARS Nashville is very, very influential, and we do many, many programs around that. Tonight being one of them, where we're going to celebrate our Overdose Awareness Day tonight at the Nazarene Church up on Broadmoor, where we're going to honor the folks who have passed away from overdoses, and then offer resources to folks that are out there.
All right. Now, Sergeant Hotz, I understand that you've been partially responsible for getting overdose kits placed in bars around town, particularly on Broadway downtown. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to the Mayor's Director of Nightlife, Benton McDonough, who has been really instrumental in increasing this. We tried starting this almost 4 years ago and didn't have much buy-in. But recently, over the last, I would say, 6 months or so, I've personally installed almost 39, I think is the running total right now, in bars all across the city. And that's thanks in part to the charitable arm of Gibson Guitars, which is called Gibson Gives, that provide these one boxes, is the name of the product. And they contain an overdose reversal medication, as well as a video that plays and talks someone through how to reverse an overdose. And it's absolutely critical to have these in as many locations as we can possibly get, and we aim to make them as common as having an AED machine in establishments as well.
I got a couple minutes left, gentlemen. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you want people listening to know?
So we just want to make sure that there's hope out there. Mike and I, along with the other ropes that are in Davidson County and throughout the state, are available to the public if they want to increase their knowledge around the opioid overdoses and use these tools. We can do trainings. We can get Narcan in the hands of folks. It is truly a miraculous drug. Where we need to be saving our brothers and sisters. So it's killing way too many of them. So,
Sergeant Hotz.
I would like to see, a community increase in the availability of treatment resources throughout not only Nashville, but the country as a whole. Getting people treatment, whether it's medication-assisted treatment, or whether it's intensive inpatient residential treatment. And if anybody wants to help do anything, whether you're a governmental agency or not, we need to increase the amount of boots on the ground work out in the streets and meeting people where they're at in order to get them the treatment resources they need and the harm reduction tools that they need.
Now, you both have stressed and emphasized the need for your beliefs that we all should have some Narcan on us ready to go. Should I get some and have it in my car just in case?
I have some in my truck. I'm going to get it and bring it back to you. Yes, absolutely. The car isn't the ideal place to store it because of the severe temperature shifts, but if that's what you can do, that's what you can do. Every police officer in the city of Nashville is equipped with Narcan, and we've saved hundreds of lives across the city, and we encourage people to do the same.
All right, so when you grab your keys, grab your Narcan as well.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
All right. I want to thank you both for being on to the show. Regional Overdose Prevention Specialist with Stars, Nashville, Mr. Charles Chap Cuthbert, and Sergeant Michael Hotz of the Nashville Metro Police Department's Overdose Unit. Gentlemen, thanks for being here, and thank you for the work you're doing.
Thanks, Khalil.
And thanks to you for tuning in this hour. This is Nashville is a production of Nashville Public Radio. It was directed by Tasha A.F. Lemley. Our technical director and board operator is Liv Lombardi. Catherine Cece's and Marion Mancini were on the phones. Elizabeth Burton took care of X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. The masterminds behind our theme music are LaRange and Namir Blade. You can listen back at thisisnashville.org or wherever you get good podcasts. And the conversation doesn't end here. Tweet us at This Is Nashville. Find us on Instagram. Tell us what you want from our show by filling out our quick survey online. You can also call to leave us a message at 615-751-2500. Enjoy your holiday weekend, everybody. Next week, we'll be featuring some labor-related re-airs. We're going to be talking about the 4-day work week. We're going to be talking about, I think, other things labor-related, but also special at the end of the week, you can hear Supermajority from WPLN's Maribel Night and NPR's Embedded podcast. This is Khalil Ekalona. We'll see you tomorrow on Monday, everybody. Be good to each other.